Hey, thank you for the invitation. I've been wanting to meet everybody. Hello, my name is Dale Catling. I am running for senatorial office for the Republican Party. I'm a homegrown individual, military brat, on 2 years, off 2 years. I went to school with Brad over there. We were in Spanish class, I believe, together at Sanchez High School. And so I am a former Department of Education teacher. I am also a former Department of Parks and Recs Historic Preservation Officer 1. I intentionally did both jobs. I quit my teaching job, went into the GovWam, so I can understand what ails our island issues with regards to government and how we can make the corrective actions to improve how things are going for us. Because you see me, that means things are not going well. If you never see me, if you've never seen me, or you don't know who I am, that's because things were doing okay, but now not so much. So that's the reason why I am running for office.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, if you're elected, what would be your primary focus, and what would be the first bill you'd introduce?
It's a controversial bill, not that controversial. What I'd like to do, my focus is education. That's my background, that's what I do. And so it's improving our school systems. We are a world-class destination for tourism. We'd like all other aspects of life here on island to be just as world-class as our destination choice. So the first law would be for the establishment of a sovereign wealth fund for the island. Right, so we're all dealing with the anxiety of inflation. You know, the U.S. government just threw trillions of dollars into the open market, so that's why we're going through this process right now. The sovereign wealth fund is a state-owned fund that can be used to trade in the global markets, the open markets. I have a par from afar who just started a sovereign wealth fund, another one for Saudi Arabia, and this one was to outpace inflation, so that way future generations can enjoy the same level of luxury as their parents and as their predecessors. So that's what we would do. We don't have a GDP, no gross domestic product. We don't have no money, right? We're all getting our money from the federal government, but what else, what other resources do we have for getting the money? For the shortfalls of education, for the shortfalls of infrastructure, for the shortfalls in maintenance. Right? We're all just going to be dividing the pot, and the same pot, and trying to redistribute the same amount of money to different agencies. That's not how we do it. We need to generate more income for the island. That's how you resolve that issue.
Thank you. Okay, with regard to our ocean and reef resources, would you support the expansion of the reef preserves and the limitation or prohibition on taking Tangisan and humphead parrotfish, both of which are on endangered species list?
Wow, okay, so this is an ongoing issue. I am a fisherman, I come from a fisherman family. I do know that the stocks are depleting. So the history on preserves and how they serve the community, they're actually really efficient, especially the way that preserves are managed nowadays. So you see that they work, right? So long as we put a cap onto where and when we can fish. That's why you always hear stories of Palau shutting down areas. They wouldn't do that if they didn't need to. They do it because they understand that life has to return. We are having an inundation of fishermen, which is not a bad thing, but we don't have the stocks to be able to supply all the people that are fishing, right? So we go back into the 1960s, and we remember there were individuals that used to use TNT as a fishing method. They also used to use bleach as a fishing method back in those days. So we need to repair all of the damaged waters that are there in our ocean. So I have no problem with the establishment of greater preservations for this. For Tangisan, for Lagwa, right, Atuhong, those are mainstay fishes for us. So we understand the importance of having that around for us in the future. But in terms of preserves, they serve their purpose. They do right. Fishermen all across the East Coast, even as resistant as they were in terms of preserving the fish stocks or their shellfish stocks, it's been shown to work.
All right. Okay, if you were elected, what would you do about crime, homelessness, and the methamphetamine problem that's ravaging the island?
There's a three-part question that takes 30 minutes for each of them. Okay.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, let's get this done. Again, it's those issues are funding issues, right? It's because we don't have the funding to support these things. There are also new issues for us. Growing up here, I never thought the day would come. I'm sure many of you never thought the day would come where you'd see homeless people on the streets. But full disclosure, some of those homeless people are my family members. I know exactly what it is that the community is dealing with. I know why they're there. And a lot of the homeless, I did a program when I was over at JP Tours. I was teaching over there in 2016. And so I had my students, we were planning on feeding the homeless. And then I get a phone call from Catholic Social Services and said, cannot do that. And I was like, why? Why is it an issue? It's because the homeless are so mamalaw, they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be seen by family members, right? You look at the homeless issues that are happening in Hawaii, that are happening in California, they don't have an answer, right? They have tenement cities all the way around. They don't have an answer. The issue that we have is that it's a systemic issue. Homelessness is not an issue, I'm a philosophy major, it's not an issue of the old Antigua system of how we ran our island prior to Western imperialization, colonization. It is a direct result of the system that we have in place, the financial system that we have in place right now that we are utilizing and enjoying, right? So in order to be able to do that, we need to be able to generate some kind of money, some kind of something, so that way we can support these services, because our finances are from the federal government, which they're never going to give us enough, and then from tourism, which we are having to deal with now. Sovereign wealth fund, sovereign wealth fund.
Thank you for putting that into 2 minutes. All right, so let's see. I'm going to ask you the same question about the Guam Heartbeat Act of 2022. Is that something you would support or oppose?
As written, absolutely not. Let me just say this right now. I am pro-life, but I do not support that Heartbeat Act. I don't like the way that it's framed. I don't like the fact that it vilifies mothers. I don't like the fact that it turns the community into snitches. Right? Growing up here, there's no place for snitches, right? And so now you're asking the community to engage in a cultural behavior that we don't engage in. So not only are you vilifying women, you're changing the culture of the island, of the people that are there as a result of it. I don't agree with it. What I do agree with, philosophy major, right? This is a long-standing 10,000-year-old question that really hasn't had a definitive answer on either side of the aisle. Right? And therefore, my stance is I'm going to do like how Kansas did, right? It's up to referendum. The role of the legislature, yes, it is to create laws, but it's also to be the voice of the people. And so as the voice of the people, I want to hear how the people feel about this subject. And as in Kansas, I have no problem with deciding on either end of the aisle, either side of the aisle, based on what people vote, right? Kansas, they wanted, surprisingly, because it's a red state, they went pro-choice. That's their choice, and that should be the people's choice, not necessarily mine. My job as a legislator isn't necessarily to enforce my sense of morality onto my constituents. My job, number one job as a legislator, is to listen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.